There was a loud crashing sound about 9 o'clock last night, which was one of my rat traps going off. So I'm just going to go up into the attic to see whether it's been successful. Sometimes the rats set off the trap, but they don't actually get caught, they escape. That's not always successful. Almost there. I'm just going to turn my torch on. Okay, one rat. That's the second one this week. I got one a couple of days ago. I had a big problem a while ago, and I set traps and the problem went away, and just recently I've noticed that it's come back again, so I've started setting my traps again. When I lived in the UK, there wasn't really a problem with pests in the house. In the summer occasionally there were a few ants. At the end of the summer in September there were wasps, but no real problems. In Thailand it's completely different. It seems that life is just a constant battle against pests. So in this video I'll explain what pests I've encountered, and I'll explain what I've done to try to get rid of them. Some methods have been effective, some have been ineffective, and you might find some of my suggestions useful. Firstly, mosquitoes, and there are a lot of mosquitoes in Thailand. At best, they can just give you an itchy, annoying bite. At worst, they can carry some quite nasty diseases. Malaria isn't a problem in most parts of Thailand, but dengue is, including where I live. When I used to vacation in Thailand, I would go to my local surgery to make sure my shots are up to date, and they would always give me malaria tablets, and these things made me feel really bad, and they were completely unnecessary. So unless you're on the sort of Thai-Burma border in certain places, malaria isn't an issue, but dengue certainly is an issue. The house we're in now is fairly well sealed, and mosquitoes in the house aren't really a problem, just the occasional one or two. And spray is very effective because they fly quite slowly and they're quite easy to get. In our old townhouse, we didn't have a front door, we just had like sliding shutters which weren't sealed. And the front room, where I used to park the car, got absolutely full of mosquitoes. Every morning there would be hundreds of mosquitoes. So I bought some of these machines. I've actually had others as well. And they're quite good if you've got a lot of mosquitoes. So you plug them in, and there's a UV light inside which attracts the mosquitoes, and there are electrodes which fry them, and they can work quite well. If you go outside after dusk, you get lots of bites, and the only thing you can really do is to put on some mosquito repellent. But it's not too dangerous because the dangerous mosquitoes, the stripy Aedes ones that carry dengue, are only active in the daytime. A few years ago, my wife had this spirit house installed, and in it resides the spirit that takes care of our house, the Jiao Ti. So in true Thai tradition, we had to have a little ceremony outside to welcome the Jiao Ti to our house. And while we were all outside, there were just flies everywhere, dozens of flies. And I can't stand the things, you know, they're dirty, and I just find them extremely irritating. So I decided to try and do something about them. And the first thing I did, I bought a couple of these traps. Now, to be honest, I haven't used them. The situation improved, and I didn't think it was necessary to use them. But what happens, you put something in the bottom, some food in the bottom, which when it starts to go off, it attracts the flies. They fly in up here, there's a cone in the middle, with a little hole, and they go through the hole into the outside enclosure, and then they're trapped. So because I haven't used it, I'm not sure how effective they are. What is totally ineffective is spray. It's completely useless. The fly lands on something, and you can only be like, you know, sort of a couple of feet away, and you try to spray it, and as soon as the spray comes out of the can, the fly is gone. I just never ever get flies with spray because they're so fast. What I have found to be quite effective are these fly papers. They're not actually paper, they're plastic. So each one's folded in half, and there's glue inside. So you just put them on a flat surface, and when the fly lands, it gets stuck. And yeah, they get quite a few flies. What I've found to be the most effective is this simple fly swat. My wife bought it actually. They're very cheap in Thailand. You can sort of get them at any 20 baht shop. And this bit's got holes in, so when you swat the fly, it doesn't move any air and it doesn't make any sound. It sort of gets them by surprise. And because it's very flexible plastic, it's very whippy and fast. And I've sat outside and my success rate getting flies with a fly swat has been sort of 100%. They are really, really good. In the past, we've had a few problems with ants and cockroaches, but not for a long time now. With ants, they line. So the best thing to do if you see them is to try to sort of trace the line back as near to the source as possible and then spray them. And what I use is this stuff called Termite. This is very effective at killing all sorts of insects. With cockroaches, if I go outside at night, I see a few. There's only been one sort of brief period where they were appearing in the house. So I use this spray, and my wife also bought these naphthalene balls for cockroaches. So we put those around the house, and the cockroaches disappeared eventually. So not really a big problem inside the house, but we still get them outside. And if I find one, I just use some Termite. The one thing that you can't really protect against yourself is termites. When we moved into this house, the stairs, the landing, and every room upstairs had real wood parquet flooring. And at one point, I just had a gut feeling that something wasn't quite right. I'm not sure why. And at the time, we had a cleaner. So I told her, when you're doing your cleaning, just to sort of, keep an eye out for things. And she moved the unit that was here. This is a new one, we had to throw the old one away. And underneath was a huge termite nest. And they'd burrowed underneath the parquet flooring into every room. It was really horrendous. And what they say about termites is that by the time you find them, it's too late. They're invisible, they're silent, and they do all this damage and you don't even know about it. So I would highly suggest getting in a professional firm to do an inspection, and they inject chemicals underneath the house. This house has special pipes just for that and into the ground. It's quite expensive, but not to do so is a false economy, because the termites can do so much damage. We had to rip out every piece of parquet flooring, and there was a lot of it. And although this may look like wood now, these are actually ceramic tiles with a wood effect, and that wasn't cheap. That was like well over a couple of 100,000 baht. So with termites, you need to get in a professional company. Getting back to the rats and talking to my neighbours, this is a problem that every house has. And not only do they get into the attic, but they also get into this cavity above the false ceiling downstairs, which is only about 8 inches. And I haven't a clue how they get in the house, but they do, and they do so quite effectively. And it's just a horrible feeling. You might be lying in bed, and just above you, you hear rats scurrying around. And if there's a few of them, it gets really loud. Sometimes it's like Rat United is playing Rat City at football. And not only is it a bad feeling, like sharing a house with rats, but because they're rodents and their teeth never stop growing, they have to gnaw constantly, so they can do quite a lot of damage, electricity cables, internet cables, and other things. And my wife's opinion, like many times, is sort of one of apathy. You can't do anything about it. But I decided that I would do something about it, and so I've done various things that I'll explain now. Rat poison is one option, but it's one I really don't like. With kids and a cat in the house, I don't really want to have poison around. However, with this false ceiling downstairs, you can only get access through the light fittings, and so I can't use any traps or anything. So I have put poison up there before, and when I did it one time, I didn't find any dead rats afterwards, but what I found was a house full of flies. So I think that the rat had died somewhere, and then a fly had laid eggs in it, and then the eggs had hatched, and then the room was full of flies. So rat poison is really not a good option, and it's something I only do if everything else fails. In the past, I've bought glue traps for rats. These are just plastic discs that are loaded with glue, and the idea is that the rat steps in it, gets stuck and can't get out. I've only had limited success. It can catch juvenile rats, but some of the bigger rats can get out, and if they've got glue all over their feet, they can make a real mess. They're also not really that humane, you know, because the rat's still alive. You just got to wait for it to sort of die a long death or dispose of it somehow. So I don't tend to use those. And these traps as well. I've never actually caught a rat inside one of these things, but if you do, you then need to dispose of the rat. I have caught something else though. At one time there was an animal that was getting into my wife's car somehow and pooping in the car and pooping all over the drive. So I set this trap and I got it, and initially I thought it was a rat. It was about the same size and the same colour, but it had an elongated snout and it was making a very strange noise, and it turned out to be an Asian shrew. So I then sort of drove it into the countryside and released it. These snap traps work really well, and they're quite humane because in most cases they kill the rat instantly. There's a very powerful spring on them, and also they've got these serrated edges so the rat can't escape. But you just need to be a bit careful how you bait them. If you use fresh food, it's going to go off quite quickly and then attract flies. I use dry cat food, but if you just sort of rest the cat food on the trap, it's going to fall off, or the rats can get it without setting off the trap. So what I do, I use a glue gun to stick the food to the trap, and that works very, very well. That was actually a tip I got from a YouTube video. So yeah, I really like these things, and at the moment, because of the problem upstairs in the attic, I've got about 8 of these traps all baited and ready to go. Cats can be good at keeping down rat populations, but not necessarily. I used to have 2 cats, and the male that died a few years ago was an excellent ratter. He used to catch quite a few. This one is completely useless. Snakes can be a problem in Thailand. We've had snakes in the garden, but none in the house. A few years ago, I had to replace all the toilets. Because of the high humidity here, all of the metal fixings had rusted away and the toilets needed replacing. So there's 3 toilets upstairs and 1 downstairs. And there have been a number of news articles where people have had snakes in their house that have got in through the toilet, and my wife was scared of that. So with this toilet, we installed a snake valve underneath before the new toilet was put in. It's just a one-way valve, so it only opens one way, so it can let out water and waste, and the idea is that snakes can't come back the other way. This video was about my problem with house pests in Thailand, but obviously these problems can occur anywhere else in the world. I hope you found some of these suggestions useful, and if you've had similar issues, let me know in the comments below how you've dealt with the problems. Thanks for watching.